If you look closely enough, everything is simple. This curve looks chaotic. It's bending, twisting, and oscillating. But watch what happens if we change our perspective. If we zoom in to the microscopic level, something remarkable happens. The chaos disappears. The curves straighten out. If you zoom in far enough, every smooth curve becomes a straight line. This visual intuition is the starting point of the Taylor series. It tells us that complicated things are actually made of simple pieces, provided you look at them closely enough. But here is the limitation. This linear approximation is strictly local. While the tangent line is a perfect match at that single coordinate, the moment we move away from the anchor point, the accuracy degrades. The curve curves, but the line continues straight. This first-order approximation captures the slope, but it fails to capture the changing nature of the function. To bridge this gap, to actually calculate values far from our starting point, we need to upgrade our mathematical tool. We need to account for curvature. To fix that error, we have to give our straight line the ability to bend. In physics terms, we're giving it velocity, then acceleration, then jerk. We start by matching the slope, then we match the curvature, how fast that slope is changing. By the time we match the third derivative, our straight line has morphed into a cubic curve that hugs the sine wave much further along its path. With every new power we add, the polynomial wraps itself further and further around the true function. We are essentially tricking arithmetic into mimicking the behavior of a wave. This reveals the core logic of the Taylor series, the idea that a function is defined by its behavior at a single point. If you know the value of a function, its slope, its curvature, and its higher-order rates of change at just one location, you have all the information needed to reconstruct the curve elsewhere. We are essentially extracting the internal logic of a function at a microscopic level to predict its global shape. You don't need to see the whole wave all at once. You just need the data packed into that one anchor point. But there's always been one part of this formula that feels like a hurdle: the factorials. Why does every term in a Taylor series have a denominator like 3 factorial, 4 factorial, or 5 factorial? It's not just a rule for you to memorize, it's a mechanical necessity. Think about what happens when you take a derivative. The power rule brings the exponent down as a multiplier. For an x cubed term, the first derivative gives you a 3, the second gives you a 2, the third gives you a 1. By the time you've reached the third derivative, you've accumulated a product of 3 times 2 times 1. To isolate the original coefficient we started with, we have to divide that extra weight away. We divide by 3 factorial. The factorials are just there to cancel out the mess left behind by the power rule. What if we want to approximate the function near a different point, say A? We just slide our anchor point along the curve. The logic remains exactly the same, but now we measure distance relative to this new center. In the formula, this standard calculation x becomes the distance x minus a. We are simply shifting our perspective to a new home base. This brings us to the master equation. It looks intimidating at first, but it's really just 3 simple components working together. The red derivatives are the curvature instructions. The blue factorials are the scaling, making sure the math stays balanced. And the green terms represent our distance from the anchor point. When we apply this to the sine wave, something beautiful happens. Because of how sines derivatives cycle, we get alternating minus and plus signs. It's like a mathematical tug of war. The minus sign pulls the polynomial down, the plus sign pushes it back up. They work together to weave a wave out of a straight line, one term at a time. This is how your calculator actually thinks when you ask it for a trig value. It's not looking at a triangle, it's running this infinite sum. But there is a catch. For all its power, the Taylor series is not omnipotent. It has a limit, a point where the math simply fails. Take this function, 1 over 1 minus x. Near the origin, the series works perfectly. It hugs the curve beautifully. But as soon as we reach x equals 1, the polynomial violently snaps away. It's like we hit an invisible wall. No matter how many terms we add, the polynomial will never cross that line. This boundary is called the radius of convergence. And on the real number line, looking at it in 2D, this wall makes absolutely no sense. There's no reason why a polynomial that works at 0.9 should fail so catastrophically at 1.1. To understand why, we have to look deeper. Look at this curve. It's perfectly smooth. There are no asymptotes. Yet, its Taylor series still loses accuracy at exactly x equals 1. Why? To find the answer, we have to leave the real number line and step into the 3D world of the complex plane. When we rotate the view, we see what was hidden. There are two poles, points where the function becomes infinite, sitting right at I and negative I. The radius of convergence isn't just a distance along a line, it's actually a circle in the complex plane. Our approximation fails, not because of anything on the real line, but because it reaches these complex poles on the imaginary axis. The 2D representation was just a projection of a larger 3D reality. Finally, we have the case of non-analytic smooth functions, which expose the ultimate limit of local approximation. Consider the function f of x equals e to the minus 1 over x squared. This curve is infinitely differentiable and perfectly smooth, yet if we calculate its derivatives at the origin, every single value is exactly 0. Because the Taylor series relies entirely on the data at that single point, it generates a constant flat line, y equals 0. However, as we move away from the origin, the actual function begins to grow. The Taylor series is unable to detect this change because the function is so flat at the microscopic level that its local derivatives provide no information about its behavior further out. It serves as a reminder that while local information is powerful, it cannot always reconstruct a function's complete behavior. When the Taylor series is applied to analytic functions, it reveals fundamental connections between seemingly disparate branches of mathematics. Consider the exponential function e to the x, the fundamental unit of continuous growth. By substituting the variable x with the imaginary unit I, the series expansion undergoes a geometric transformation. Each multiplication by I results in a 90-degree rotation in the complex plane. Instead of the terms increasing linearly, they begin to oscillate, forming a spiral. By separating this spiral into its real and imaginary components, we recover the trigonometric functions. The horizontal component corresponds to the cosine series, and the vertical component corresponds to the sine series. This results in Euler's formula, e to the ix equals cosine x plus I sine x. It is a definitive mathematical unification, demonstrating that exponential growth and circular rotation are two expressions of the same underlying power series. This reveals the fundamental methodology of the Taylor series. It is a local approximation. It constructs an entire function based exclusively on the information available at a single point. This approach is highly accurate near the center of expansion, but it is limited by its inability to handle discontinuities or sharp changes. A wave, for example, causes the polynomial to fail because the local derivatives at a single point cannot account for the sudden transitions elsewhere. To address functions with global periodic behavior or sudden changes, mathematics utilizes the Fourier series. So Taylor series is local, but what if we care about the entire shape at once? As we detailed in our hidden geometry video, instead of relying on local derivatives at a point, the Fourier series decomposes a signal into a sum of global sinusoidal waves. While the Taylor series acts as a tool for local differentiation, the Fourier series provides a global representation of the system's frequency components. Whether it's calculating the trajectory of a spacecraft, simulating the flow of air over a wing, or just helping your calculator find the sine of 0.5, the Taylor series is a monument to what we can achieve when we bridge the gap between curves and arithmetic. It demonstrates that complex global behavior can often be derived from localized data. By understanding the rates of change at a single point, we gain the ability to reconstruct and predict the behavior of an entire mathematical system. Resonate with the algorithm.